felt like a countdown to the end. Meanwhile, Jerry had made it back to the entrance. He surfaced and waited, expecting David to follow. But minutes passed, then more panic set in. He started shouting into the water, shining his dive light into the tunnel, hoping for any sign of movement back in the air pocket. David knew he couldn't stay there much longer. The air wasn't clean, and he was running out of options. He put his mask back on and submerged himself, turning off his light. Maybe, just maybe, he could spot a glimmer of Jerry's light through the murk, and then he saw it, a faint glow so dim it was barely there, but it was something taking the deepest breath he could. He pushed off the rock shelf and swam toward it. His lungs screamed for air as he moved, his body on the edge of giving out. Finally, his head broke the surface, and he was greeted by the blinding beam of Jerry's dive light. He'd made it. Exhausted, shaking and gasping for breath, he clung to the edge of the pool as Jerry pulled him out. They climbed out of the water and back up the shaft, the weight of what had just happened sinking in with every step. When they finally emerged into the sunlight, it felt like breaking free from a nightmare. Later, they shared the story with experienced divers who told them just how lucky they'd been. Those air pockets they'd relied on, they don't always contain breathable air, and that silt they stirred up, it could have stayed suspended for days, making it impossible to find the way out. David and Jerry had survived, but they knew it could have gone the other way so easily. That cave had almost claimed them, and it left them with a lesson they'd never forget. The earth doesn't care about your plans. If you're not prepared, it will swallow you whole. Geologists believe that the safest place to be during an earthquake is inside of a cave. That may be true. However, this caving nightmare tells us a different story. It was Memorial Day weekend 1980. A team from the Mother Lode Grotto set out to explore Church Cave in Kings Canyon National Park. The group, Dave Cowan, Paul Graves, Jack Aspina, Bob Pine and Eric Popoff, was experienced, maybe even a little overconfident. They weren't rookies. They knew what they were doing. But let me tell you, no amount of preparation can match what nature throws at you. Sometimes they started their trek in the morning, hiking up steep, rugged paths through thick pine forests, the kind of trail where every step feels like work and you have to watch your footing, because one wrong step means twisting an ankle. But spirits were high. You know how it is, laughing, joking, taking in the beauty of the day and imagining the adventure waiting underground. By the time they reached Church Cave, around 9:30 a.m., their excitement was electric. Descending into the cave, they felt that rush you only get when you step into a world that doesn't feel like it should exist. The air gets cooler, dampness clings to your skin, and the sound of your breath echoes back at you. They rappelled down into the first section, their lights casting eerie shapes on the walls. They found themselves in a chamber, a tight space, the kind that makes you feel like the earth is giving you a hug, but not the comforting kind. The walls seemed to press in, and the stillness was almost deafening, and that's when it happened, a deep rumble. It wasn't like anything they'd felt before. The ground beneath them shuddered and the cave roared like a living thing. A 6.0 earthquake had struck. Can't imagine the terror they must have felt clinging to the walls as the world around them shifted. Dust filled the air, rocks loosened and tumbled, and the ceiling creaked like it was considering coming down altogether. When the shaking finally stopped, there was this moment of eerie silence. I bet their hearts were pounding out of their chests. They were alive, but they weren't out of danger, not by a long shot. They knew they had to get out. The cave could collapse at any moment, and aftershocks were practically guaranteed. As they started their climb back toward the entrance, the situation went from bad to worse. Barely 20 minutes later, a 5.7 aftershock hit the ground, groaned, and rocks from the canyon above began raining down. You've probably felt earthquakes before, but let me tell you, being underground during one is an entirely different beast. Every vibration feels amplified, like the earth itself is trying to swallow you. The group pressed on, reaching a section known ominously as the torture chamber. If a part of a cave has a name like that, you know it's not going to be fun. This was a steep, narrow chute. They'd climbed down earlier, but now they had to go up. It was slow, careful work. One by one, they started the ascent. Jack Espina was leading the climb when the worst happened. Another massive quake, a second 6.0 hit the cave, came alive again, shaking violently. Jack lost his grip and fell, slamming into the rock as he slid back down the chute. He came to a sudden stop, wedged tightly between two boulders. Meanwhile, the rest of the group was fighting to stay upright as the quake rattled the cave. Dust and pebbles poured down like a waterfall. Jack was screaming, his voice echoing through the chamber. Trapped, unable to move, and surrounded by chaos, he struggled to free himself, panic taking over as the rumbling continued. Pebbles and dirt cascaded down around him. Below him, the rest of the team was scrambling for footing as the quake continued to shake the cave. When the shaking stopped, the others rushed to help him. It took ropes, coordination and sheer will to pull Jack free from the crevice. He was banged up, bruised, shaken and probably questioning every decision that led him into that cave. But there was no time to dwell on it. They had to keep moving. As they neared the entrance, the earth trembled again and again. Aftershocks kept them on edge, forcing them to freeze in place, hugging the cold rock and praying the walls wouldn't collapse. Every movement was a gamble. Would the next step be their last? Finally, after what must have felt like a nightmare, they saw daylight, that faint, blessed glow of freedom. They staggered out, battered and bloodied but alive. The earth gave one last shake as they exited a 5.7 aftershock that sent more rocks tumbling behind them. They made it barely. Church. Cave didn't collapse, but it came close, and those men, they carried the marks of that day with them. Not just the physical scars, but the memories of how close they came to being buried alive in.